in the 7th episode of ParaDoc, The Primeval Code, Primeval Form of Life. In 1988, two researchers made a groundbreaking discovery that actually had the potential to change the entire agricultural economy. Guido Ebner and his colleague Heinz Schürch exposed biological material to electric fields that far exceeded the natural field strength of the atmosphere. It turned out that organisms and isolated biological material reacted to these electric fields in a miraculous but mysterious way. The organisms had reverted to their original form. In some cases, plant species were found that existed millions of years ago. Presumably, genes were retrieved that had been used at an earlier time. In addition, the growth rate of germs and the rate of fertilization and germination were increased, or the fundamental composition of a population was changed. In other words, they had discovered how to obtain stronger plants, larger fish, and thus greater yields in an as yet unknown way without genetic engineering, using only an electric field. A new era in agriculture was about to begin, but who knew the prehistoric code? The researchers presented their inventions on Swiss television in 1988, and in 2007, the book The Prehistoric Code by Luc Bergin was the main source of publicity. Bergin knew the two discoverers personally and accompanied their work. The discoveries were confirmed by several universities and several professors stand behind them. Among others, the Nobel Prize winner Werner Arber. He said, "I was able to see the series of experiments in person at Ciba and was really impressed. Ever since then, I've been fascinated by the idea. I'm sure someone will rediscover it at some point. Was that the alternative to gene research, or even better? Is it possible to reactivate diversity? What's behind it? What exactly did the researchers discover?" The following information is based on an exciting interview with Daniel Ebner, Guido Ebner's son. In the interview, he explains how they discovered it with his father. It started with animal experiments where they placed a static electric field around a rat and constantly changed the poles. They wanted to see whether this would cause stress or whether the heart rate would adapt to the pole changes of the electric field. An electrostatic field is a field in which no current flows. A positively charged plate is placed opposite a negatively charged plate and insulated so that no current can flow. This still creates a voltage field because the current actually wants to flow but cannot. It is exactly the same with the Earth's electric field, that is the voltage field between the ionosphere and the Earth's surface. If this electrical voltage discharges, lightning strikes the Earth. So it is something that also occurs in nature. The rat's heart rate adapted to the change of poles and no stress was generated. However, the next step was to place a worm fern under this electric field and see what happened. The worm fern that grew from this seed was a completely different one, the one that existed millions of years ago. The assumption was that dormant genes were reactivated. In other words, the development of life in history is still stored in the genes. Nature would therefore have a memory. But how did we know that it was the original form? How did we know that the new form depended on the history of living organisms? In the meantime, there are bacteria that have adapted to the environment and can live with oxygen. But there are still bacteria that still live without oxygen, that is, that have not evolved in the past to get used to oxygen but have retreated into niches. Salt bacteria, for example. These live on or in salt and cannot live in an oxygen-rich environment such as water. They have therefore not undergone the development to adapt to oxygen-rich environments. In contrast, the other bacteria that live with oxygen have undergone this development. Both types of bacteria were placed under an electric field. In the case of the salt bacteria, the oxygen concentration was increased. In the case of the others, the salt concentration was increased. The salt bacteria then died at 3.5% of a diluted environment, for example water, as they had never learned to do so. but the other bacteria were able to survive in up to 28% salt solution. Corn, among other things, also reacted to the electric field. 8 days after being exposed to the electric field, the seedlings were planted in normal soil and treated as usual. After 14 weeks, the results showed that something had definitely changed. Broader leaves and stems, 3 to 6 cobs per plant instead of just 1 to 3. Formation of several stalks. A maize plant now had a maximum of 12 cobs like the original maize, which is only found in the wild in Peru. It was calculated that maize treated in this way produces 40% more yield. In the case of trout, the researchers obtained an almost extinct, larger and livelier trout species. It was much more vital but also shyer, which should be a healthy flight reaction of the fish. This trout also had more teeth, which should be the case because the trout is a hunting animal. These teeth help it to catch its prey. However, if the trout are given food during fish farming, they no longer need these teeth, and over the years the trout develop into a negative species. The healthy nature of the trout is lost. It is probably the same with all other animals. Apparently, nature stores the information that is vital for it. The negative changes in nature caused by humans can therefore be reversed using the Primeval code. Why is this technology not being used, even though it has so much potential? Perhaps it is all a deliberate secret conspiracy? Or just an as-yet unexplored, incompletely decoded technology of the future? And in the next episode of ParaDoc, is our history written in nature? Primeval Code, Part 2. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and if you don't want to miss any more videos from us in the future, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell. It would be a huge support to our work.